As a pet owner, it's always important to know your rights. So here today to talk about the top 5 legal questions every pet owner should have the answer to is Paul Harding of Martin Harding and Mazzotti. Paul, thanks for being on the show.
Kate, thanks for having me.
So we came up with this list together, and I find a lot of these things pretty interesting. So my first question for you is, can I own too many pets?
Yeah, well, I had to find the answer to that because I didn't know that answer either. And you hear things, and the reason the answer is so tricky is because it depends where you live. Found out if you're in Schenectady, 3 pets, 3 pet maximum. And if you're in Colony like we are right here, you can have, they say, well, there's really no number of dogs. It's a reasonable test. And you got to be able to take care of them and feed them and all the reasonable things we would think you need to do, but it didn't have a number. So I guess at some point, there's too many, they'll view it as too many, you got kind of a kennel going on, and they could shut you down. But found it interesting that the general theme is be able to take care of your pets, be able to take care of, don't get your neighbors riled up, keep it clean, keep your yard clean, and we're not going to bother you unless you're in a municipality that has a limit.
Now, what if somebody watching lives in Schenectady and they have 4 dogs?
Yeah, they should stay real quiet, I think. You know, like anything in life, right? It's always going to be when there's a problem, right? Now, you're supposed to have your dogs registered. So if they have 4 dogs and they're registered, then the Schenectady would already know about it. And if they've not decided to do something about it, then it's probably okay. If you have 3 dogs registered and the 4th one you're kind of keeping quiet, you know, you just need to be aware that that's the rule. And if they come knocking on your door and it kind of push comes to shove, you're going to have to make a move.
So my next question, I think a lot of people have been in this situation on one side or the other. Legally, am I allowed to let my pet, say we're out for a walk, go to the bathroom on somebody else's lawn if I clean up after them?
Yeah. No, it's actually a trespass. So it'd be like kind of letting your kid sneak over there and, when they're young and just kind of do something on a neighbor's lawn. Usually goes okay, right? Most neighbors are going to be okay with that. But, if that's a consistent place where the dog goes to the bathroom
every day,
and if it's
at
a number
3 o'clock.
and a number 1, and all of a sudden there's that spot there,
Right.
and the neighbor's got his pristine lawn, sure, and then you could be held accountable for the damages. There is a trespass, so it doesn't happen a lot. Usually you kind of know the neighbors where that's going to work and not work, but yes, you go on someone's lawn, you're not authorized to do it. It technically is a trespass.
So say you're one of those people with those gorgeous lawns. How do you go about maybe holding somebody accountable if they are doing this regularly?
You got to catch them first, right? So you got to see them on there. You got to kind of witness it. Take any, I guess you could take a photograph of it or a video, or just approach them. And then all of a sudden, day 2, there's this big dead patch. So I don't think it ever gets to that level, but it can get to some angst, conversation. You go out there and say, I don't want your dog on my lawn. Well, what's the next part of that conversation? Usually doesn't go very well. So, try to keep tempers down and try to, just kind of keep
civil.
If you can, yeah.
So let's talk about travel. What are my pet's rights as far as travel goes?
Well, this at an airport recently, and I would say going back 5 years ago, I kind of remember seeing no dogs. And if you did, you saw them, the little carry-on ones, they're kind of cute, everybody would look at them. But at the airport maybe 2 weeks ago, and what I saw was, I counted 11 dogs that are kind of wandering around the airport, and they're service dogs. And so we've seen a dramatic increase in the number of folks who are able to travel with their dogs. The dog provides comfort, and to do that, you need to get a note from a doctor. You need to get certified and do all the FAA things, but once you do, your dog can come with you. And I guess nationally, there's just been such a big movement afoot in that. And so, on the plane, there's dogs, and, generally it's lots of fun, right? We all like to see dogs, and it's kind of neat to see them on the plane, especially if they're, relaxed and enjoying it.
Now, you've probably heard what's going on in Montreal with the breed-specific legislation, and it's not just pit bulls that are considered restricted breeds. It can be a German Shepherd, and while we might not have anything going on too close to home right now, what are someone's rights if they do own one of these restricted breeds?
Well, in Quebec, in Montreal specifically, the legislation that's on the table is saying, hey, you can't own a pit bull. Meaning if you have one, here are the rules. You got to keep it muzzled. You got to sterilize it. You have to keep it within the confines of your house, and you can't replace it. So once your dog passes or you no longer own your dog, you can't get another one. And so, I mean, that's probably the extreme, and that's why the extreme always makes the news, not only in Canada and here, but internationally. But we do have breed-specific laws in the United States. In fact, right now in Fort Lauderdale, certain dogs can't go to certain parks within certain jurisdictions. So if you own a pit bull, and of course the pit bulls always seem to get picked on a little bit, and they can't go to specific parks. So it says no pit bulls, no Rottweilers. And you know, where we live here, you just don't see a lot of that. It hasn't taken hold, but I believe it's 37 states have some degree of breed-specific laws. And of course what's happening up in Canada, kind of rewriting the books on that. They're saying what you can and can't own. They're not taking your dog away. So if it's, you know, you've got a family dog, you can keep that pit bull, but you have to do all those things to it, and then you can't replace it.
So if you have a pit bull and say you want to travel to Fort Lauderdale, these are rules that you should probably look up in advance.
Yeah, you got to decide where you're going to take it, and you might end up with a ticket if you take it where it doesn't belong.
Our last question today, what happens if my dog bites someone?
Well, here in New York, there's a rule, and it kind of a little tongue-in-cheek, but it really is sort of the way it goes. It's called one free bite, meaning if your dog bites somebody, you know, it doesn't, you know, they can get written up. They can go in front of the town. You get a ticket for it. But from a liability perspective, right? As an owner, if you don't have notice of the dog's dangerous propensities, and the dog bites someone the first, now you're on notice, right? So the first bite's sort of free, they call it. The second bite, if they bite someone, you know, now there can be a claim brought against you as the homeowner and the owner of the dog. And so that's the free bite rule. And as far as the dangerous dog goes, I mean, there can be an attack that's so vicious that they can have the dog removed from the premises. They can have the dog put down. We've seen some of that in some of the municipalities. But from a liability perspective, the first bite or even the first attack is free.
And the dangerous dog, that's a classification, right?
Yeah, it is. And the courts have held different standards as to what qualifies for a dangerous dog. But the bite locks them in as a dangerous dog. Once they've bitten someone, they now have this category. They can't get out of it. They could go to therapy. They could become a wonderful dog for 10 years, and they're still deemed a dangerous dog. So one bite, the second bite, problems kick in.
Now, on the flip side, what are my rights if I get bitten by a dog?
Yeah. Well, if you're bitten by a dog, you hope the dog has bitten someone before. You don't want to be the first one. So if you are bitten in New York State, rules are different as you go to different states. You cannot bring a claim. You cannot pursue a claim unless you can show the dog showed dangerous propensities, and it's logical. So you got this owner, loves their dog, dog's wonderful, and if they didn't know the dog was had the ability to do what it did to bite you, they're sort of off the hook. You can't bring a claim against them. But if it bit someone, then they're clearly on notice. But let's say it was always growling and would kind of jump at the door, and if it wasn't for the door, it would have attacked somebody or scared someone into their house or their car. You know, those facts will be enough usually to persuade a jury the dog was dangerous, or the owner knew the dog was dangerous.
All right, Paul Harding, Martin Harding, and Ms. Zadi, always very useful information.
Well,
thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Kate.